Okay, I'm gonna ask you to introduce yourself and your position.
I'm Dr. Steve Marek. Should I be looking at you or the camera?
It
doesn't matter.
I'm Dr. Steve Marek, lecturer in biomedical engineering.
So what are your responsibilities primarily as a lecturer?
I teach the biomedical engineering lab classes. Currently, that's first year design class and 2 junior level lab classes. Shortly, we'll be introducing a new first year class and a new sophomore class, both of which will also be labs.
So being a lecturer is certainly different than being a researcher. So how would you describe one of your typical work days?
I spend a lot of time with my students, depending on the day and my schedule for classes. But most of the time I am in class, either in a lecture or walking around checking on students in the labs. If I am not actively in a class, then oftentimes I'm dealing with either grading related issues or planning for future classes or something like that.
Okay, so what parts of your career do you find challenging or difficult?
I wouldn't say there's much that's really difficult, but some of the challenges are trying to find good ways to introduce a new concept to a group of students, especially when we're working on developing new content and finding a way to teach something new, especially since we don't necessarily know what kinds of things you already know.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely the most difficult with the first year class because some students come in with a large number of AP credits, some students come in with very few AP credits, so I think that's probably the most challenging.
So what about the enjoyable parts? What do you look forward to each day?
I like when students get excited about what they're working on or they see how useful it can be. Since I do teach the lab classes, most of them are very hands-on and a lot of times it's oriented towards something that will be useful to the student later on in their career. A lot of times students don't necessarily see that up front, but when they do realize, wow, this actually is going to help me out a lot and it's going to make me a better engineer, then that's a good day.
So back in your undergraduate and graduate days, there were probably many decisions and choices that you had to make concerning your career. So what made you decide to want to go to the BME field and more specifically as a lecturer?
Well, both of my degrees are in chemical engineering. I always had an interest in the bio side. When I was in undergrad, I was interested in trying to work for a pharmaceutical company over the summers, an intern there. So that's one of the reasons I was drawn toward BME. My graduate career, I did drug delivery related research, specifically for type 1 diabetes. And so I just kind of kept progressing more and more toward BME. Now, the reason I wanted to be a lecturer was I always knew I liked to teach. When I was in high school, actually, there were a couple computer science classes I was taking, and a lot of the students just really didn't understand what was going on, and I got it really fast because I had already been programming before that. I had taken those classes. So since I didn't really have anything else to do, I walked around and helped the other students out. So I was pretty confident early on that that's what I wanted to do. Then in undergrad, there were a few things. We had some outreach kind of experiences, and then also as president of the Chemie Honor Society, I instituted a tutoring system, and pretty much we had tutoring twice a week, every week for all of the hard chemie classes, and I went to about half of them. It was hard to get a lot of the other students involved, but then when I got to grad school, I did a lot of TAing, and the classes with recitations were the best, because it actually gave me the opportunity to interact more with the students, whereas a lot of the lab classes were more, here's your procedure, follow the procedure, don't do anything that's going to get you hurt. So as I just kept progressing, I realized more and more that, this is what I'm most interested in, and I'm less interested in worrying about the researching and the writing grants and having grad students and things like that.
So you mentioned you did some drug delivery research. So how would what was that like?
So my project was trying to find a way to make a synthetic polymer that could respond to its environment. That way, if and the specific disease that we were targeting was type 1 diabetes. And the goal was, if a patient consumed a food or drink that had a large amount of sugar, what would happen is your blood glucose levels rise. And the goal was to build a drug delivery device that could measure those glucose levels and respond by releasing insulin. Now, there are a lot of technical challenges to it, and especially because of the route we decided to pursue. It was using hydrogels, which don't have computers or any super fancy sensors that could actually measure the concentration. So we were instead relying on an enzymatic reaction between the glucose and dissolved oxygen, and it would form essentially an acid in the vicinity of wherever that glucose was. So what that would do is drop the pH of the local surrounding area, and then this hydrogel was able to respond to a pH change. In the low pH, it was able to swell. When it swelled, it allowed insulin to diffuse out. Then when the glucose levels dropped, the amount of acid in there slowly dropped, and that meant that the polymer shrank back down. Then insulin couldn't get out anymore.
So, seeing as how successful as you are today, what kind of advice would you give to aspiring undergrads?
First thing, I think you need to find a field that you're interested in. If you're interested in it, then it probably won't matter too much what you're doing. You'll be happier. If you're definitely interested in the academic route, I really strongly suggest you do undergraduate research. Make sure that you're interested in research. Also try to find opportunities to help tutor students. There are plenty of opportunities on campus for tutoring. And see how much you like the teaching aspect too. And then based on that, if those do seem like a good fit, then grad school will probably be a good option for you. And from there, it all depends. Just discuss things with your advisor. Make sure you're in constant contact with whoever your advisor is to find out, all right, if this is what I want to do, what do I need to get done now to make it easier?
If you could choose to be something else aside from a professor, would there be anything else, or? If money or career prospects weren't an issue at all.
Professional rock climber. No. I do a lot of photography on the side too. That's a pretty good outlet for me. And so I think if I had absolutely no need for money, then it might be rock climbing. If I needed a job though, then photography is pretty interesting and takes creativity to do it well, and it also has a lot of technical components, so it suits me pretty well.